What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Lombardi Time Brews Live, where I'm your host, John Del Rey, and this is partner in life, Claudia. We are here to hang out and talk all things Green Bay Packers, especially because finally, thankfully, the NFL draft is getting close. Like, don't get me wrong, I love draft season, but it takes a long time to finally arrive. And this year, we don't have the whole month-long conversation about, like, who's our quarterback going to be like we did last year. So
I'm not disappointed.
Yeah, no, it's not that thing. It's just we are trudging towards the draft. 8 days to go. And that means, just like last week, I do have an update for you. There's also a couple changes, couple clarifications to the top 30 visit list. So just like last Wednesday, I'm going to give that to you. And I even have a little overlay for you to take a look at. A couple changes to this list that we found out about. One, Murphy, the edge rusher from UCLA, he was not actually a top 30 visit. I got that clarified for me. He was more like a combined interview. So he's not actually on the top 30 visit list anymore. And then in addition to that, there was also a linebacker named Bryce Gallagher, who previously was on this list. He was on there last week. Turns out he actually counted for them at their local pro day. So they did not have to have a top 30 visit with him. They got to interview him elsewhere. So we're currently sitting at 22 of the 30 top visits are now known, and that would be Ray Davis, Jermaine Burton, Zach Zinter, Tyler Guyton, Amarius Mims, Donovan Jennings. Donovan Jennings is a newer one on the list. He's kind of an interesting candidate. He's listed there as a tackle. It's believed in the NFL that he's going to play guard. He started that transition even after the season. He's one of the most experienced players in this entire draft, kind of like Jalen Sundle and Garrett Greenfield, who I talked about earlier this week. So we'll see what happens with Jennings. He's projected probably as like a 7th rounder / UDFA, but they did a top 30 visit with him, as well as Giovanni Manu. So they're continuing to look for tackles, O-linemen, that potential UDFA prospects. Other top 30 visits would be Kool-Aid McKinstry, Jerrion Jones, Jaquan Shepard, Omar Brown, Chris Edmonds as for the corners, or some of them might be DBs. Then you got Akeem Dent and Oladapo as the true safeties. Linebackers, you've got Tyron Hopper, Edrin Cooper, Trevin Wallace, Edge, Austin Booker, and Marshawn Nealand, who finally actually got in his top 30 visit, which felt just like destiny that he was going to get one, and indeed he did. And then you got a couple of defensive linemen as well, Michael Hall Jr. from Ohio State, Mason Smith from LSU, and Christian Boyd from the University of Northern Iowa. So, I've been talking for weeks about how important these top 30 visits may be, that they can be quite indicative of who may wind up as future Packers. In the last 10 years, 10 of their 60 visits have wound up as Packers. I've talked about that a bunch. But I did see an interesting conversation online earlier today, and this kind of adds some really important caveats to it. It seems like they do a very efficient job at getting their top 30 visits to sign as being Packers, or they draft them for especially the later rounds, Carl Brooks, Dontavian Wicks, etc. The earlier rounds, not so much. In fact, of the past few years, since Gutekunst took over as GM in 2018, these are guys that were top 50 picks, so most of the second round, and then, of course, all the first, that did not do top 30 visits. And that includes Lucas Van Ness, Luke Musgrave, Jaden Reed, Quay Walker, Eric Stokes, Jordan Love, although he's on he was the COVID year, so some exceptions there. Rashawn Gary, Darnell Savage, Elton Jenkins, Jay Alexander, and Josh Jackson were guys that were at the top of the draft that wound up not doing top 30 visits. So do with that information what you will. I'm just showing the facts and the tendencies. So there you have it. Those would be the update on the top 30 list and what that may mean for the draft starting next week, Thursday. In terms of, while we're still waiting for a couple comments, a couple questions to roll in, just wanted to give a programming update. Next week looks like I'm actually going to be doing content every single day of the week next week. So Friday this week is going to be a mock draft roundup where I go around this country, gather all the mock drafts for the Packers, trying to get kind of a consensus and then offer my thoughts on it. And then next week, Monday, is going to be my final mock draft. Tuesday, I may actually give you some information about these top 30 visits, things like that. Kind of debating on what I should do Tuesday. I'm thinking either info on the top 30 guys, the visits, or we may even conduct a live mock draft if you guys are up for that. Let me know what you prefer. That's probably going to be Tuesday. And then Wednesday, we're just going to do a totally typical Lombardi Time Brews live. And then that sends us right into the draft, where we're going to be here every minute, every pick, every second. we're going to be sitting here hanging out, talking to you fine folks about the Green Bay Packers. So there you have it. That's kind of the new information. Can't say that there's too much else going on news-wise with the Green Bay Packers as of right now. Just everyone in a holding pattern waiting for the draft to finally arrive. And I keep saying finally because it could have happened 2 weeks ago.
So many mock drafts.
The NFL doesn't want that. The NFL wants it to extend into almost May. There was a time when it used to just be on weekends. That was glorious. All right, Solar Miner. The more I see all these mock drafts, the more I'm thinking about trade back. Yeah, which I very much understand the sentiment of. I still find myself in the camp being more likely of seeing Goo potentially trade up. I say that for a couple reasons. Now, I should acknowledge I very much understand the logic behind a trade back because a lot of people consider the strength of this draft to be like 30 to 90. And you can get a ton of talent there. So why not trade back, get another pick in that round, maybe get another guy? It makes all the sense in the world, right? Especially if someone doesn't fall to you at 25. But given their ammunition with 5 picks in the top 100, given the fact that some of the positions that the Packers need are a little bit more shallow in this draft, I could also very well, and I think this might be a little bit more likely, see Brian Gutekunst falling in love with somebody and then using some of those assets to go up and get him. I tilt that way being a little bit more likely. Honestly, I think the least likely scenario here is that he just sits at 25. I think we're going to see movement on night one for sure.
All right, Big Al saying, hi, Pat. Who's your draft crush that probably wouldn't be available by pick 25?
All right. So I guess the apples of my eye or the position I really want to see them get in round 1, probably more than any others, probably corner. So, I mean, Quinion Mitchell would be amazing. Cooper DeJean is like whoever you talk to, he's either going to go like top 15 or he's just easily going to be there at 25. So I don't know. I wouldn't call that a dream, but I see him helping a lot on the defense. And then if you want to spin it to the other side, like looking offensively, my top offensive lineman is, I think the consensus is Joe Alt. Like if you can get Joe Alt, just put him in there and then don't worry about one of the tackle spots probably left for a decade plus. So yeah, I mean, to answer that, but I was thinking about that earlier today because I had a feeling someone was going to ask you like, who's your draft crush? Have you fallen in love with like Anthony Johnson Jr.? Like, I really don't this year. Like there's a number of guys that are really good that I'm going to love playing for Green Bay, but just no one that like has sent my heart a pitter patter. I think there's plenty of guys that they can go get that are going to be helpful this year.
Steve says, sup, everyone.
Sup, Steve. Hey, nice picture, by the way, Steve. I've used that in many a thumbnail. In fact, is that a little clip from a thumbnail? I think that might be.
It looks that way. Chris saying, hey, Jon and Claudia, happy Wednesday. Hope all is well. Hope the same to you.
Hey, Chris, happy Wednesday. And then Solar saying,
agreed, if he can get someone he believes is an all-pro.
Yeah, and that's why I just kind of tilt that way. Like, if he's sitting there going, all right, we need a defensive back, regardless of position, I don't have faith that DeJean is going to be there at 25. So I'm going to chip in a third and go get him. Like, I could easily see something like that. And I think that that's just tilting a little bit more likely than him kind of resting and then going back. So
Stu saying, yes, it is. And thank you for it.
You betcha. Got you, man.
Rocket Me saying, yo, Jon, it doesn't matter who we pick as long as they contribute even
True.
a little. Why? Because we have awesome third and second year players already.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the benefits of being a young team on the ascension, right? I know that there's been some interesting, like, I don't even want to call them data analysis or stuff, but there's been some articles as of late that I've seen kind of floating. I haven't taken them too seriously, saying like, how do we know that the Packers are going to continue to get better? Right. And like logically, yeah, a lot of them are 23, 24, 25, 26. They should just take the natural step in progression of becoming better. But like, how do we know that? And like, we don't. But like, there certainly is enough to tell you that more than likely they will continue to get better. But to your point, yeah, second, third year guys are really the core of this team outside of a couple of stars, especially on the defensive side, like J.R. Kenny, obviously there are exceptions, Jordan Love exception on the offensive side, but like the rest, they're young. They're young. And if we can get rookies that are just going to help out with that can kind of come into the fold and do their own ascension, it's going to be special times here in Green Bay.
Big Al saying, name one Packers player in your lifetime that was disappointing. For me, Ladarius Gunter and Geronimo Allison.
Man, Ladarius Gunter, there is not a day in my life where I'm not going to feel bad for Ladarius Gunter. Like, that poor guy, there were hopes for him. And then to get trotted out against Julio Jones in a playoff game was just so freaking unfair for like this poor Gunter. Like, had no business covering Julio Jones. Man, he got shafted in the worst way. I would say one guy that, looking back on, I probably shouldn't have been as high on, but I was Kevin King. Like, I really liked him when he was younger in his career. I thought he had a world of potential, and I thought he was just what they needed too. And then the injuries just dogged him. Like, man, he just could not get over them. And then they just kept piling up. And then he had like one good year with like 5 interceptions, and it was great. And then the injuries came back, and then it was time for him to go. So I guess like when I think disappointment, I got to go there. That's top of head answer.
Rockin' Lee saying Van Ness is going to have a 10-sack season. Book it.
I'm down with it in every single way. Rocket needs. Absolutely. And there's a real chance for him too. I mean, we'll see. Like Preston Smith, it feels like he's defying age at this point. Like, dude's only 32, but we've been talking for 3 years about like, well, is this the year? Are they going to cut him? Is he going to fall off the cliff? And he just keeps going. So, I mean, like, LVN has a really, really good chance to get a lot more snaps this year, depending on what happens with Preston, as well as if they continue to rotate Rashawn a little bit, maybe even on running downs. Could be entertained for sure. So, yeah, totally possible.
Chris Hand saying, John, I'm bringing back out the violin. We got Valentine and Valentine last year. Do we get one more corner because of Stokes, or is he making that big pack attack comeback?
You know, I'd love a comeback from Eric Stokes. His rookie year was so freaking promising. Before, like he did take a little bit of a step back his sophomore year, but I think it's overblown how often he was getting beaten that second year. That first year was great. And I would love for him to come back. But I think from a roster building standpoint, it's much more responsible of the Packers to look at him and say, we really like him as a corner. But that leg injury he sustained was so traumatic. We don't, granted the Packers might, if he's going to get back to full speed, which was such a huge part of his game. I think you got to almost look at him and say, almost like you did with Bakhtiari for a stretch there, of we don't know if he's going to play. Whatever he does play is a bonus, but we can't necessarily bank on him game in and game out. So because of that, you pepper corner with the talent. I also would love for the Packers to start looking at the corner position a little bit, how they built this last wide receiver room. You know, Watson, Dobbs, Reed, Melton, Wicks. There's just, who's wide receiver one? Because they could throw to any 5 of them. Corner, you've got your Alpha and Jair, right? But then for the rest of the group, have them have roles, have them be interchangeable. Nixon, Stokes, Valentine, add in a Gene, or like trade up and get a Mitchell, add them to the collective, because then you've got depth, which is something we haven't talked about a corner in Green Bay for a while. So I'd be all for that for sure.
Captain Kevil's me staring right at your channel since 5. YouTube not telling me shite. Feels personal, not gonna lie. King was the perfect match opposite Jair, but dang, the chicken wing and shoulder tackle has killed us.
You know, he was one of those total players for me with King. Like, I remember being so high on him, and then it was like year 3 of his career. I was at training camp for a day, and I actually saw him in person for the first time. And I am not kidding you. That man's ankles had to be like that thick, like that far around. And it was like, oh, the injuries make sense now. Like it's unfortunate. It's just the reality of it. But hey, speaking of YouTube, I've been a little negligent with comments as of late, and the reason for that is because I realized I went in last night, saw a whole bunch of comments that I had not responded to or anything over like the last 2 weeks. I stopped getting comment notifications, so apologies if I've left anyone hanging. But YouTube's not doing great right now.
Kevin Kimball's also saying in 2022, having been at the Eagles, Bills, and Commanders games, the Stokes issue, I think it definitely was a communication between corner and safety meltdown. Amos fell off a cliff. Savage was lost. So
I mean, like I'm with you. Oh, there it is.
Okay.
Stokes was
confused by the shifting of assignments and rotations. They would pull him off, talk to him. He would be better. The offense would change concepts and he would be lost again.
Yeah, and I think it was some unfortunate timing. I think the one thing, though, that goes to the point of Stokes did still regress in some measure was, I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but I do know that his separation numbers in man coverage were worse in year 2 than they were in year 1. So like your point, yeah, probably 1,000% accurate. I don't doubt it at all. Makes total sense because as you mentioned, like that is when Amos's decline was in full force. But that does kind of tell you that Stokes was maybe a little bit more hesitant in year 2. Maybe he was just trying to think too much, which very much goes into your point. But like the point stands that he was just a shade off of his rookie self, no doubt.
Big Al saying no respect from Ted Thompson, but he was one of those GMs that really believed in draft and development, which is good, but that also cost the Packers some Super Bowls.
Yeah, and looking back, realistically, it might have. Yeah, I understand saying that with some certainty, but like it very well could have, for sure. It also kept the Packers in a very, very strong financial position every single year. I remember during the peak Ted years, right? Like before his health really started going and before the team started going with it. The team routinely was turning over $25 million a year in cap, $20 million in cap, and pushing it into the next year. And so it was this thing of like we had endless money and we could go re-sign guys for money. It was when back then did we talk about, we don't have cap. Now we talk about it every year of like, where's Goots going to find the money? And it becomes a problem. So I will credit Ted for that, for sure. But realistically, was he too extreme in the spectrum of draft and develop? Yeah, he was. But hey, I will add into points for the free agent signings that he made. They were good. Like Pickett and Charles Woodson, great examples for sure.
Prince Capsaicin saying 5th-year option decision for Stokes coming after this season.
Yep.
High cornerback is appropriate.
Yeah. And that's part of the thinking too. Like Stokes, if you look at him this year, like if you can contribute and you can be like you were, fantastic. I don't see any way the Packers are picking up that 5th-year option, which means he's entering the last year of his deal. So how long are you going to count on him anyway, right? I did see some speculation that maybe the Packers will approach him with like a Jordan Love type situation where we're not granting your 5th-year option, but we still sign you to a 1-year deal, which is very incentive-based. I could see that making some sense for Stokes, and I could see that making sense for Stokes to agree to at this point in his career as well. So, I mean, yeah, but to your point, yes, he's a free agent after this year in all likelihood.
So you're saying if we don't get DeJean or the Cooper, then I hope we get Max of the Melton.
Max of the DeJean of the
Cooper. Okay, now right. I got it.
I gotcha. I mean, yeah. One of the reasons that I like DeJean that like makes him stand out from Melton, in my opinion, is DeJean you can put, like, let's say that they don't find a solution to the safety spot opposite McKinney. Okay, put DeJean there. Like, he doesn't have to be a corner, right? Or let's say that Nixon, as a league average nickel corner last year, continues to be league average. Okay, well, then put DeJean at nickel. Like, that's one of the reasons that I really like DeJean is he doesn't have to be someone that you figure out the day you draft him. You can put him where you need him. Max Melton is much more your typical, like, he's going to play corner. Granted, he's got inside-outside versatility, but he's playing corner. You don't have that safety versatility as well. But to your point, yeah, no, I'd be quite happy with Max Melton on the team as well.
Kevin Keppel saying my friend was at the Lions game and is a Lions fan, and he legitimately texted me Bro, I'm praying for that cornerback. That's the most gruesome thing I've seen. That dude may be done, bro, not trying to be a jerk.
Yeah, that injury for Stokes was awful. Like, and I still don't think we know the full details of what happened there. We know he got screws put in. It's been said that he like got a plate in. I mean,
Nasty.
especially for a speed corner, tough to come back from. No doubt about it.
Rocket Me saying, disappointing Packers? Sherrod, I think, first round tackle and second round cornerback Josh Jackson recent picks.
Yeah, I mean, Sherrod had that injury. Like, I forget the specifics of it, but the leg injury that he just never came back from. And then Josh Jackson, yeah. I'm going to throw on Josh Jones with there too. Like both of those second round defensive backs that were supposed to be the future of the secondary that, if anything, were net negatives most games. Yeah. Ball.
How'd you guys meet?
So we actually, we used to do a ton of theater together. And that is where we met. And then just started talking more and more. And well, looky here. Now we do a podcast.
Now we talk together.
Yeah, we do.
Cody's saying, notice it seems they draft high ceiling players from underdog schools. So when in the NFL, they are more prepared for adversity.
From underdog schools, when they're in the NFL, they're more prepared. I mean, I hadn't thought about that spin on it before, but it's entirely possible, Cody. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. And then I see you got a follow-up here. I'll hit that as well.
A high potential guy from an underdog school is going to come in with that chip on his shoulders. Like no matter how great they are, nothing is proven. Yeah,
I think you could say that, especially for the later rounds, like when the Packers do venture into small schools, traditionally, like a Carl Brooks is a great example. Yeah, totally possible. I will say, I think a lot of the Packers' approach in the earlier rounds, like why we see them choose high RAS individuals, and they have such strict thresholds, especially in rounds 1, 2, and 3, or 1 and 2, I should say. 3 is where they do whatever they want. But I think it's to mitigate risk. They feel more comfortable. They feel more likely that a high RAS player in round 1 is going to be more successful in the NFL than someone who's low RAS with great college productivity. So they opt for the high RAS. And that's what I kind of see. But to your point, yeah, no, you could get with that.
Chris Hand saying, I want to switch the question asked to you earlier about worst player for Green Bay. Who do you think was Green Bay's worst quarterback?
At least in the 2000s, I had high hopes for Seneca Wallace just because I really enjoyed playing with that dude on Madden. And then the Packers signed him, and I was like, here we go. We're going to have a mobile offense if he comes in. But it was the old version of Seneca Wallace that they got. And I remember he came into one game and did nothing, never even ran. And I remember just being so incredibly disappointed by, like, this is not the hopes that I had for this signing. So, yeah.
Big Al saying, name one Packers game or moment that made you mad and furious.
I'll go back to the watch parties this year.
Right, yeah.
No, I
you
think
can see them for yourself.
I remember recently the one that really sent me off a cliff was the last year of the London game. I was so looking forward to the London game. I thought it was going to be neat. I had wanted the Packers to go out for years just because I thought it was going to be cool. And then, holy crap, did they lay an egg? And that part of the problem was the loss was so indicative of why that 22 team failed. Like it was all of it in one game. Their refusal to run in obvious run situations. Rodgers not being the Rodgers that we had come to like. Like there was just so much in one game. And I was so angry at that one. On a happy side, though, there have been very few games in my life that have actually made me like scream and yell. So on the happy side of things, the Hail Mary in Detroit, I remember running through my house like a madman. That was excellent.
Kevin saying, I'm very curious what it was that made Jair so much better under Mike than Joe. Jair was a menace. Yeah. True, he wasn't tested much, but he was blowing up screens, pass breakups, just a lockdown. I
think in terms of the blowing up screen portions, at least, I think that shoulder injury has really set him back. He approaches physicality in the game now differently than he did pre-injury. And it is just an unfortunate thing. Hopefully it's mental and not just the fact that the shoulder's like cooked, right? But we don't know. There is a pretty stark difference in that. In terms of scheme-wise, I don't know. I think the Packers might not know as well. Jon maybe has said some things. He probably said a lot of things this last season, actually. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't think there's one set answer. But in terms of physicality, yeah, it's that shoulder injury. There's a pretty clear A and B there with Jair.
Cody's saying, I think Flynn was easily a starter on
played in Seattle and was their starter. Got a nice contract to start in Seattle for a little bit. So, yeah. And, there's, I've talked about him in one of the mock drafts, but to me, to like my opinion, if you're looking for like a 7th round quarterback who's kind of Flynn-esque, that does not have the strongest arm, but pretty good decision maker, good intangible guy. I'm not saying to unseat Clifford, but I would look at Sam Hartman from Notre Dame. He's considered probably a 7th round pick. Reminds me a lot of Flynn in that the big knock on him is not the strongest arm, but he does everything else well. They could do worse for a 3rd string quarterback for sure.
Solar Miner saying, my perfect drafts make linebacker a strength, drafting 2 in round 2.
Ooh, 2 in round 2. So I'm thinking Solar Miner, you're probably doing something like Edgerrin Cooper. And then if you're getting frisky, maybe a Peyton Wilson or maybe even Junior Colson, who you winded up with all the time for your 2 in round 2. But yeah, that would solve the position, right? No doubt about that. And buffer against McDuffie leaving in free agency next year, which is possible.
Kevin Keble saying the most tragic thing about the London game was the incredible single tracking shots at eye level view, making you feel like you were running around mid-play were so good. And then the second half happened.
Indicative of the season or everything bad about the season in one game. Yeah. I will just say, I'm glad we didn't do watch parties that year. I was, woo.
Yeah. Chris Hand saying, let's play Uno, shall we? Return card, meaning go back in the past. Would you rather Packers win the Super Bowl, get a better pick like Watt, or get a better coach? Just for fun.
I mean, you gotta say Super Bowl, right? That's like the whole point. Like, if you gotta pick one thing to like redo, like give me 2014. That team deserved to win a Super Bowl. It was good enough to win a Super Bowl. They just didn't. So, like, give me that one. Or how about we flip Bakhtiari's injury? Let's play that one again in the Wayback Machine. I remember being out to dinner when I read about that and made for a very sad dinner.
Cody saying Alec Ingold playing quarterback for my high school.
Oh, that's really cool.
That's cool.
That's cool. I always love learning about those NFL connections. It's awesome.
Stu saying, I still want Malik Washington. Sorry, Jon.
Hey, I get it. I don't blame you because there were even workout tapes of him out there recently where like the dude's agility is off the charts. The Packers would just have to view him as a slot guy, which he very well might be, but the Packers would have to use their sizing thresholds for the slot in order to pick him. And I don't want to talk in absolutes, but like he's little for how they like to operate at wide receiver. And I just don't know as if I see them picking another slot this year. They've got Reed there and they're mighty content with that, I gotta believe. So I don't blame you at all. He's a fun player. I just don't know as if Green Bay's gonna feel the same.
Solar Miner saying Wilson and then whoever is left out there out of the twos.
Okay. So you are a Peyton Wilson fan. I mean, I'd have a lot of fun with him for sure. Like put him at Mike and let him go. Definitely. Like that would be fun for sure. But 24 and with that medical history, there's some big old red flags on him for sure. But I'm going to be more than happy if they get him.
Kevin Couple saying, I was not watching football much in 2014, saw the Cowboys game, but not anything after until the 2016 Cowboys game. Thank God for my heart, to be honest. When the 2014 collapse happened, was there a palatable... That was the window?
Mm-hmm.
Feeling that we do now in hindsight, what was the overall vibe like besides heartbreak?
So I wasn't, I was very much in 2014. I was, I didn't really do Twitter or anything online in that time of my life. I was just very much an intense fan, all in my own. And just, at least for me, it was just like outright sadness. Just, I did not weep after that game, although I will admit there was a time when I was a wee little child when the Terrell Owens catch happened against Frisco in the late 90s. That one made me weep. I'm not going to lie. I was a wee little child, but 2014 was just sad. Sad. In fact, I think immediately after the game, I took off the Packers jersey I was wearing and I put on a Brewer shirt because I was like, it's Brewer season, baby. Tried my best to move on. So, all right, everybody, that is it. Hey, real quick, while I got a bunch of people, let me know, Tuesday of next week, do you want to learn more about the top 30 guys, or should we do a live mock draft? Let me know, and then where I would like to talk to you guys, make the picks based upon what you tell me to pick. So would you rather get some more info on top 30 guys, or would you rather do a live mock draft? I'm not saying what you say now is what I'm going to do, but just like it will help inform. So let me know in the comments, and I want to see a couple of those comments before we jump out of here. It'll help inform next week a little bit.
Chris Hand saying Rodgers Hail Mary versus Detroit, or Tramon Williams interception comeback versus Dallas.
For me, the Hail Mary versus Detroit, because like I remember I was getting ready for bed because like I was mostly like, all right, well, they crapped the bed against Detroit. Okay, cool. And then I still was like watching, and then it happened, and I just lost my mind. So I got to go with that one. In terms of Tramon Williams interceptions, the comeback one against Dallas was great, but I will never forget his interception against Atlanta during Rodgers' like perfect game, round 2 of the playoffs. That one was chills. Solar Miner saying draft. Captain Kebble saying thanks for doing these, you too, of course. And for me, top 30 guys, my attention span is a weakness. Okay. All right, we got one vote for each. Anybody else want to chime in, or you're just going to watch it regardless of what we do? That would be preferable from our standpoint. But let me know. We're going to hang out for 10 more seconds, and then we're going to jump. So I still like on Facebook. Just a reminder, everybody, please hit like, please share, etc., etc. Help the channel. By the way, I can just announce this super quick. On next week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and you already know we're going to be here for every minute of the draft. I have also talked with Wisco Fanatics, that group of guys that I've done stuff with before. It's super great to work with. They are super knowledgeable. I do believe we're going to do some joint stuff during the draft as well to get you some more opinions, some more thoughts, and also help fill the time. Because if you were at last year's draft party, like it's a lot of us. And so breaking it up a little bit, it helps. A lot of time we're on camera.
Yes.
Capital saying, but watch whatever you do, boss. Take care. Hey, we'll take it. Thank you, Captain Kebbles. All right. So Friday, going to be a mock draft roundup. And then as I fully determine next week, I will let you know exactly what we're going to do to go from there. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. Do hope you enjoyed. I will see you on Friday. And as always, go Pack, go.